So this is exciting. We haven't done this before. This is a series of going to be 6 little films, one done every week, to help small groups to think about what we're going to use from the Sunday material to help you with your small group. So hi to everyone in your small group. This week has been the first of the Sundays, and it's been on the problem of unhealthy emotional spirituality, and know yourself that you may know God. And the concept behind the whole thing is that our lives are quite often like icebergs. So there's a bit of a 10% that is above the water, that is what we show to each other in our behaviour and in the way we speak to each other, and then there's this 90%, which is what we choose not to show to each other, either because we don't really want to show that to people, or sometimes even because to some degree we're not even aware of what's going on under the surface. And what this whole series is about is if we can, in our emotional well-being, in our emotional health, know ourselves better, then what that's probably going to end up with is a much deeper spirituality, which means that we will get to know God in a much deeper way, and that He can change us. And that 90% below the iceberg is that whole area that God wants to change in us to make us more and more like Jesus. So that's what it's all about. This week is the intro to all of that. If you were around on Sunday, you will have heard it. If you weren't around on Sunday, then this few minutes is to help you get into it and to work out what you're going to do tonight in your small group time. One of the things that is listed on your weekly note sheet, and it's also in the book. If you've got hold of the book, then that's great. Do encourage you to do that. You can get hold of it online. But the first thing in there is this list of top 10 symptoms of emotionally unhealthy spirituality. And one of the things that I want you to just have a look at tonight is those top 10 lists there, and have a little look through. And with all of this, try and be as honest as you possibly can, because it's like if that 10% shows a side of us that is only the good stuff, then we never really look at what's underneath. So when you look at this, don't just go for what you think everyone else might want to hear. Think about what is really the case honestly for you. And for example, when I look at that list, the one that really jumps out for me, and group leaders are going to be saying what's the one that jumps out for you, so have a little bit of a think about it. The one for me is the one which says living without limits. And why is that unhealthy? It's because God gave us limits. And some of us have come from family backgrounds, and mine was very much like this, where the answer to anything is yes. You always say yes. You always go for every opportunity, jump into everything. And there's something that's really good about that. But actually, there's also a sense with that where there's where it's hard to say no. We don't know how to say no, and we can end up trying to run our world as if we're God. And of course, we know the truth is that God is God and we're not. So that's the one for me that I know that when I read that list this week, that's the one that jumped out for me. And the other thing about this is I just want to really encourage you to look at it honestly about where you're at now, at this moment in time, not where you are when you're in a good place on holiday. It's what's going on for you this week, and how is this impacting life for you right now. So have a little think about all of that. The other thing that you can do to think about how you are at the moment is a bit of a personal inventory or a questionnaire that is on the website. There's a website that goes with all of this. It's www.emotionallyhealthy.org, and if you scroll down on the course page, you will get to the bottom of it and you'll see it says, do you want to take the personal inventory? Bit of a health warning with it. When you do it, some of the answers can be that it comes back for you is a bit blunt. It might offend you. I want to encourage you to just go with it. Don't let it offend you. And I also want to encourage you to do it now. Do it this week at the beginning of the course, and then do it again in 2 or 3 months' time. Because the whole point of this journey is that God wants to grow a deeper and deeper relationship with us, and this hopefully will be real good evidence for you at the end of the 2 or 3 months. So have a go at that. For tonight, in a minute, what you're going to also do is look at the story of David and Goliath. It's in 1 Samuel 17. You can read it through as a group. And the main thing to think about tonight is the way in which David's spirituality, even though he was such a human being, he made mistakes, he sinned, he messed up, just like you and I do. In fact, if you look at his life and you look at his adultery with Bathsheba and Psalm 51 that comes out of it, you see his raw honesty and sin and consequences of what he did. So he is just like us. He's messed up. He's got things wrong. And yet, what you also see with David is someone who was used to being on the hillside with the sheep, spending time with God, spending time alone with God, spending time in silence with God. And these are some of those rhythms and disciplines that it's really hard for us to grab a hold of, particularly in the busyness of this sort of world that we live in. And he was able to do that so that when he faces Goliath on that battlefield and he gets into a place where there's taunts from all over the place. So there's Goliath saying to him, "Who do you think you are? You're never going to beat me. You're never going to come to anything." And there's Saul, who's supposed to be his leader and should know better, saying to him, "You're too young. You can't do this." And then there's even his family saying to him things like, if you look in the story, they say to him things like, "We know how conceited you are. We know how wicked your heart is." He's got all this stuff coming from his family, coming from his leaders, coming from the enemy. And he's able to see through it and to cut through it and to know, do you know what? That's not the real me. It's not the real me that God has made. And I can trust God that he's going to fight for me and he's calling me to do this. And that's stronger and bigger and can break through all of this stuff and all of this lies that's going on around. So as you spend time tonight, just want to encourage you to allow God to bring to the surface that stuff that has come, maybe from family in the past, maybe from leaders or people in authority that should have known better, maybe from the enemy or those taunts of lies that are in our heads, and to be able to allow God to bring them up, but then break through them, knowing that God is bigger and you're secure and you can do whatever God is asking you and calling you to do because of that relationship that you have with him. So have a great evening. And I'll see you next week.